Welcome into this Friday edition of ESPN FC. Shaka Hislop, Stevie Nichols, Sebastian Salazar here in studio with you. Paolo Bandini will be joining us throughout the show as well. Plenty to cover. We've got cup finals from around Europe, but let's start in Italy with Serie A, where the season will come to an end on Sunday. The biggest question left to answer is who will be joining Juventus and Napoli in next year's Champions League. Atalanta and Inter Milan right now in the driver's seat. AC Milan, though, with a chance, and Roma with a mathematical chance to get through. Now, let's start with Inter. They're facing Empoli, a team they have 28 more points than over the entire season. But if you look at their last three matches, Empoli actually playing much better than Inter in the run-up to this match. So, Paolo, I'm going to start with you here. There was a time when we had Inter Milan penciled in, maybe even sharpied into our top fours. What has happened, and is there any sense that they could actually blow this on Sunday against Empoli?
There's a very real sense that they could blow this against Empoli on Sunday. And from the fan point of view, you could say that's just classic Inter. Pazza Inter, crazy Inter, the nickname. They're always capable of blowing these situations. But even if you just want to look at this season, you can see they've already blown pressure situations before. They just had to beat PSV in their last game of the Champions League group stages, and they didn't. They just had to beat Eintracht Frankfurt at home after drawing with them in the Europa League, and they didn't. And now they're in form in the second part of this season either. So much wrong with this Inter team at the moment. No question, if you go through the 11s player for player, they're more talented than Empoli by far. No one's asking if Raja Nainggolan's a better player than Afria Acqua, but there's a real sense that Inter can blow this game. Absolutely.
Interesting you mention Antonio Conte, Gazzetta dello Sport, on the cover, pointing that Conte to Inter could be all but a done deal. And who would he like to bring with him? Well, none other than Romelu Lukaku. Those are some pretty big moves for the fact that we don't have Champions League football guaranteed for this Inter side, Paolo. I mean, is all of this dependent on Inter finishing top four, the moves with Lukaku and obviously even Conte before that?
Lukaku certainly is unrealistic if they don't get to the Champions League. Whether it's realistic even with the Champions League, I'm not certain, but it's definitely unrealistic if they don't get that 50 to 60 million euro guarantee that you get just for qualifying for that competition. Conte, officially, the line from Inter is well, there's no official line from Inter. I'm sorry, I misspoke there because, of course, this is not a confirmed deal publicly. There's no official comment from the club, but what you hear out of Inter is that this deal is done one way or the other. It doesn't matter if they get the Champions League or not. Personally, it's one of those situations where I'll wait and see it if it happens, if they don't qualify, because Conte has been pretty public in the things he said recently about, listen, look, I'm a manager who has won the league 3 times the events I won at Chelsea. I deserve to go to a club now that has a project that's ready to go and win and be ambitious and compete. So if he was really presented with that Europa League situation, is there not some chance he would waver? I mean, I don't know. That's me speculating rather than having a line on it. But yes, there's certainly a lot of confidence at Inter, I would say, that deal will be done whatever happens.
Stevie, let's focus on the Manchester United side of this. How desperate do you think they are to get rid of Lukaku?
I think they will be more than happy to get rid of Lukaku. Listen, the guy sat on the bench. He hasn't produced on the field, along with many other players at United. So, yeah, I would suggest that if they get a good offer, I think he'll be out the door as soon as they possibly can.
Agreed. If they can get anywhere close to the money they paid for him, was it somewhere between 65 and 70 million, I think you take it. And as far as Lukaku is concerned, I think it's an opportunity that he would also jump at. Listen, I know there are concerns, financial concerns on Inter side of the equation, but let's be honest, Lukaku feeling that is going to stay at Manchester United. There's no Champions League football for them either. He'll get an opportunity to play in a team and in a system that I think better suits him. Quite clearly, he's behind Rashford in the pecking order at Manchester United now. All the boxes are ticked, certainly as far as Lukaku is concerned.
All right, back to Serie A and really the other side of Milan. AC Milan with a chance to maybe jump into this top four, Paolo. They've got Spal on the weekend. When we look at this AC Milan team, I'm really just kind of curious. I mean, at what point do we think they can get the job done against Spal?
Well, look, Milan have won their last couple of games. They've put themselves in a position where they're at least sort of nipping at the heels of Atalanta and Inter and waiting for an opportunity. And if they play as they did in the last couple of games against a Spal team that haven't got anything to play for going into, they certainly have an opportunity, and they probably have the easiest fixture of the 3 teams going into this final weekend who've got something to play for.
Paolo, Milan outside the top 4 to start the weekend. Let's go worst case scenario. They can't get the job done against Spal. They don't make Champions League. What would the ramifications be for the club?
They'd be significant for sure. The club is under investigation by UEFA for financial fair play. In fact, there's a couple of investigations that are sort of still being worked through. The first one, of course, Milan were banned for a year from European competition, but they appealed it, successfully appealed it, but there's still the legal process with that, and the appeals process is still being worked through. And now there's a fresh investigation into their latest 3-year batch of accounts, which is still to yield a result. That's ongoing. But the ramifications are very real for them as a club. The Elliott Management Group obviously took over the club from a situation where these things hadn't been handled very well, and is trying to put the club back on a better track. What its long-term intention is still to find out. They may well be looking to sell and find a new buyer themselves. But either way, the club needs to clear the mess that was created before they came in, and I think they almost, to a greater degree than for instance Inter, have a real need to get this money in and start that process of making things healthy again. So it's huge for them for certain. I mean, it's huge for all of these clubs in terms of who you can buy in the summer, but I think just Milan have that past I guess cloud to clear at the moment, and without Champions League football it's going to be a lot harder to do, and there's certainly going to have to be some big sales, I think.
Paolo, the other part of this chase for the Champions League is Atalanta. I was listening to the Serie Awesome podcast, I guess, last week, and you guys were saying that maybe finally the pressure is getting to this free-flowing side. Is that true?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a really tricky spot for them on the final weekend. You know, they should be playing at home, right? It's the end of the season. They've got one game left to go against Sassuolo, who are in mid-table, and they should be thinking, right, let's do this in front of our fans and get a big emotional push over the line, because they've just played a Coppa Italia final, which they lost to Lazio, to win games, even though it hasn't got ostensibly something big to play for. So there's a lot of pressure on this game for Atalanta. Obviously, it would mean more for them as a club than any of the others. They're not used to being in the Champions League. It's not a thing which Atalanta's done before. It's a huge opportunity for them to be in an amount of money that be transformative, and also just to experience validation for this incredible season. I think, you know, the cup got away from them, but finishing fourth would almost be more remarkable. It would almost be something less probable for a team of their stature, of their wage bill, of their opportunities to achieve. So I think there is a lot of pressure on them. I think you can look at certain games like the Empoli match at home, where they had more than 40 shots and failed to score, where perhaps they were snatching at things and feeling that pressure. So it's real, the pressure. They're good enough to get over the line, but I think it's definitely a tense situation for them going into the final weekend.
Okay, Paolo, prediction time. Who's joining Juventus and Napoli next year in the Champions League?
This is just a gut feeling, but I still think it's somehow going to end up being Milan and Inter at the end of this weekend. I don't think that would be something that would feel right to me. I'd feel like that wasn't the outcome that was deserved. I think Atalanta deserved to be there, but there's just that question in my mind of whether or not they'll be able to handle the nerves on this final weekend.
Oh, that's terrible.
Paolo Bandini hates Atalanta and romance and everything that is right with football.
Where's the romantic?
Here's the Gazzetta dello Sport talking about one of the many potential candidates to replace Max Allegri at Juve, Maurizio Sarri. But really, the rumor that has caught the internet on fire is this rumor that Pep Guardiola has, in some cases, somehow Paolo already agreed to a 4-year deal. Now, Guardiola has come out and said, no, he's not going to Juventus. So the question is then, how is this still a story?
Beats me. I have no reason to believe that this story has any legs at all. Perhaps there are people out there who have some information that I don't have that makes them really believe that it's real, or perhaps we're getting into silly season a little bit early and people are enjoying running with this story because it sells papers and gets clicks on websites, and perhaps even does some positive things for Juventus' share price, I believe, over the last few days as well. So if you want to be really conspiratorial, there's a thought for you. But look, I don't think that Pep Guardiola is going to be the manager of Juventus next season. I think he's very definitely going to be the manager of Manchester City.
Paolo, who's your favorite then to get the Juventus job?
You know, we were talking about this on the podcast the other day. I really, really struggle to see a clear favourite. I think that it's a concern for me that Juventus have made this decision to part ways with a great manager without having a clear favourite in mind. I think at the moment it's probably one of Simone Inzaghi or Maurizio Sarri, the ones I think are most likely, but I'm saying that and thinking, well, how much, if I was to put a percentage on it, what would I put on it? Maybe 20% on either of them. It's not like I see one clear front runner who's way out in front of the pack. Inzaghi, I know that Paratici is an admirer of. I know that they have a relationship, but my big question with him is just, Are you really going to bring in a guy who's never coached in the Champions League for what's perhaps a 1 or 2 window you've got left with Cristiano Ronaldo? And Maurizio Sarri, well, Max Allegri said it over and over about him not being a winner, and Juventus is the club that is all about winning. That's the Giampiero Boniperti line, that winning is not an important thing, it's the only thing. And I just don't know. I just don't know. But I think Sarri has certainly the capacity. I personally think he's a great manager. I think he has the capacity to do something really interesting with the club. But I don't see a standout here. And I think it's going to be a fascinating few days and perhaps weeks seeing which direction they do ultimately go in.
Plenty more Italian football insight on the Serie A Awesome podcast. Paolo joined by Gab Marcotti and Mina Rizzuki. You can download the latest episode on ESPNFC.com or on iTunes. Right now, up on the website, Sid Lowe previewing Saturday's Copa del Rey final in Seville between Barcelona